In today's video, we're diving into a mysterious and emotional story about Gene Hackman, a Hollywood legend who chose to spend his final days in silence alongside the woman he loved, Betsy Arakawa. But behind his passing, was it a true love story or a tale of obsessive control? This story isn't just about love. It's a mysterious journey filled with unanswered questions. Was it a mutual decision or a carefully calculated choice? Join us as we uncover the untold truths behind this story. If you found this story intriguing and emotional, don't forget to hit the like button and share this video with your friends and family to uncover the hidden mysteries behind Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa's story. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss our upcoming videos. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you think about this story. Santa Fe, a vast arid land stretching beneath the fiery hues of the sunset, where gentle breezes glide past cacti and weathered adobe bricks. In a quiet corner of this landscape, in a simple yet sunlit home, Gene Hackman and his longtime partner, Betsy Arakawa, lived out their peaceful days. At 95, Gene Hackman remained strong, his masculine charm, once captivating Hollywood, still flickering in his eyes, and in the soft smile he gave while brewing a cup of green tea, stepping onto the porch to greet the morning light. His beloved daughter, Leslie Ann Hackman, called these her father's golden days, not in a sorrowful sense, but as a testament to his enduring vitality. To Leslie, those final years were still full of life, just as her father had always lived, aging yet unwaveringly strong. Leslie told Daily Mail on February 27 that her father loved practicing Pilates and yoga, maintaining his routine several times a week. Remarkably, at 95, Gene Hackman still upheld his daily exercise habits. His neatly rolled dark blue yoga mat, resting in the corner of the living room beside a silver Pilates ball, stood as quiet reminders of his peaceful morning rituals. Betsy often sat on the sofa, her delicate hands flipping through the pages of a book, her eyes drifting toward her husband with a quiet mix of admiration and pride. Gene and Betsy's love story began in the 1980s after Gene Hackman had gone through a failed marriage with Faye Malt and found solace in Betsy Arakawa, a graceful and refined classical pianist. Their relationship didn't unfold with fanfare. No grand gestures or red carpets, just endless conversations, and Betsy watching silently from the sidelines as Gene remained immersed in his final film projects. They later chose Santa Fe as their retreat. They had a wonderful marriage, and I have to give credit to Betsy for keeping him alive, Leslie said, unable to hide her emotions as she spoke about her stepmother, the woman who entered Gene's life with unwavering devotion and patience. For 33 years, Gene and Betsy built a private, quiet world filled with tranquility. They spent their days gardening, taking evening walks, and listening to classical sonatas played by Betsy on the wooden piano in their living room. Leslie once joked that some days her father and Betsy didn't need to say a word. They could understand each other with just a glance. Gene never cared for noise, especially after leaving Hollywood. He found joy in life's simplest pleasures: a morning cup of coffee, a new novel from the local bookstore, or simply standing by the window watching the last rays of sunlight cast over the wildflowers in their Santa Fe garden. He was no longer the legendary Gene Hackman, but just an old man learning to savor each breath of life. If you want to stay updated with more fascinating stories and the latest information about trending events, Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to get the newest videos from us. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about these theories? We look forward to hearing from you so we can discuss and explore even more captivating stories together. However, within that serene picture, shadows slowly began to creep in. No one knew exactly when it started, but Leslie admitted that despite her father's excellent health, she sensed something was off, something she couldn't quite name. At times, his voice grew deeper, his gaze more distant than usual, as if Gene was holding on to an unspoken truth buried within. Leslie visited her father in early February, when winter still clung to Santa Fe with its lingering chill. "He looked great," Leslie recalled. "He was cheerful, joking around. We were talking about his garden plans for spring." She had no idea it might be the last time she would hear his warm laughter in that little house. There were no signs of fatigue or illness. Gene Hackman was still the man he had always been, strong, full of life, carrying a quiet secret within him. Betsy, too, remained the same, with her gentle smile and soft voice as she called his name. They were like two old sparrows leaning into each other, sharing their final warmth as the day quietly faded. When news about Gene and Betsy's past surfaced, Leslie could hardly believe her ears. It all felt too sudden, too unreal. She had always believed that her father, strong, resilient, and unwaveringly optimistic, would have another decade ahead of him. And Betsy, the woman who had stood by his side like a shadow, how could she have vanished so abruptly? "I'm grateful to her for that, and I'm deeply saddened by her passing," Leslie said briefly to the media, her words carrying the weight of lingering sorrow, the grief of a daughter who lost not only the father she had admired as a hero, but also the woman who had cared for him for over 3 decades. Outside the window, the last rays of Santa Fe's winter slowly faded. The silhouette of Gene Hackman, the man who once shook Hollywood, was now only a collection of unfinished stories and unspoken secrets, quietly slipping into the approaching darkness. And somewhere in the gentle evening breeze, the soft melodies of a piano still lingered, the final love song of Gene and Betsy, echoing in the heart of Santa Fe. February 26 began like any other day in Santa Fe, a crisp, dry morning with a sky as clear as glass and the first rays of sunlight filtering through the sparse trees in front of quiet estates. No one could have guessed that behind the closed doors of house number 34, where Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa lived, a strange mystery was waiting to be uncovered. Local police received a call from a family acquaintance who had been trying to reach the Hackman couple for nearly a week with no response. Even Leslie Hackman, Gene's daughter, had been unable to contact her father and stepmother. She sensed something was wrong, but never imagined the worst. When the first officer stepped onto the porch, the crunch of gravel beneath his boots, he immediately felt an eerie stillness. Every corner of this home had witnessed 3 decades of love. Every tree and shrub had been carefully tended to by Gene and Betsy. But that morning, something felt different. Empty, cold, as if time itself had stopped. Behind the dark wooden door, the lock was undone, a detail that made the officer pause for a few seconds. In Santa Fe, where people still placed complete trust in one another, an unlocked door wasn't unusual. But for Gene Hackman, a man known for his caution, it was out of character. As the door swung open, the first thing that greeted him wasn't the familiar scent of food or Betsy's perfume, but a heavy, lingering air. It carried the scent of aged wood, the dampness of a house sealed shut for too long, and something else. Subtle, indescribable, yet hauntingly familiar. In the dim light filtering through the curtains, Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa lay side by side on the deep brown sofa in the living room. Betsy's head rested gently on Gene's shoulder, as if they had simply drifted off after an afternoon of reading or talking about their garden. At their feet, their small dog, their loyal companion for years, was curled up, its head resting on Gene's hand, eyes half closed. There were no signs of struggle, no injuries, no evidence of an argument, no chaos, just an eerie stillness, as if the room itself were a painting capturing the final moments of a perfect afternoon. On the coffee table beside the sofa, an open bottle of prescription pills sat undisturbed. The way it was placed, not in haste, not in disarray, felt like a small piece of a puzzle slowly coming into focus. Betsy had been taking mild sedatives for years to manage her chronic insomnia, especially after entering her 70s. Gene often joked with friends that he would fall asleep early while Betsy would struggle for an hour before finally drifting off. However, Leslie insisted that there was never any indication that Betsy's condition was severe enough to lead to a tragedy. The strangest part was the unsettling distortion of time. Police couldn't immediately determine when the couple had passed. Was it a day ago, 2 days, or even longer? Inside that house, time seemed warped, stretched, leaving no clear trace. The teacups left on the kitchen counter were dry, yet showed no signs of mold. The clock on the wall had stopped at some unknown moment, its minute hand frozen at 3. When the forensic team arrived, they could only form vague initial theories. There were no signs of outside interference, no break-in, no violence, nothing disturbed. Yet no one dared to call this a typical case. A heavy silence filled the house, suffocating in its stillness, as if the very walls held whispered secrets they refused to reveal. When Leslie Hackman received the news, she rushed to Santa Fe. She couldn't believe what the police described over the phone. The father she had always known as strong and resilient now lying motionless beside the woman he loved, on the very sofa where they had spent countless hours talking about books, old films, and memories only they shared. Police deemed it a suspicious case, yet they couldn't explain what truly happened behind those closed doors. Was it an accident, a silent pact, or simply the universe aligning at the right moment, allowing two weary souls to find peace after a long and exhausting journey? Whatever the reason, Leslie knew she was left with too many unanswered questions, too many words unspoken, and now, only secrets. The once vibrant home, filled with light and laughter, had now become a house of secrets, where every brick, every door, every lingering breath held pieces of a puzzle yet to be solved. On the night of February 26th, the house stood open, but the secrets within might never be fully uncovered. That night, under the velvet sky of Santa Fe, Leslie Hackman sat quietly by the living room window of the estate, where her father and Betsy had spent more than 3 decades. The moon cast a soft, silver glow over the trees outside, like a delicate veil between reality and a dream. Everything was silent, yet inside Leslie, 1,000 voices screamed. She had stayed in the house that night, after the scene had been cleared, after her father and stepmother's bodies had been taken away. The emptiness was chilling, an eerie void. Every painting on the wall, every piece of furniture seemed to whisper a story yet to be told. Leslie wasn't superstitious, but she believed in signs. As she stepped into the living room where Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa had been found, she felt that the truth wasn't as simple as the police had described. Sitting in Betsy's old armchair, she listened to the wind outside whispering like a sigh in the darkness. Memories flooded back, especially one afternoon when she had asked Betsy, "Who will take care of whom if Gene becomes frail?" Betsy had smiled gently, but her voice carried a shadow of sadness. "I don't want to be left behind. I can't imagine this house without him." At first, it seemed like nothing more than the words of a wife afraid of loneliness in her final years. But now, with everything that had happened, each of those words felt like a weight pressing down on Leslie's chest. Betsy wasn't just afraid of being alone. She was consumed by the idea that if Gene passed away first, she would have nothing left to hold on to. Even in their private conversations, Betsy had admitted her fear of becoming a burden to Gene as she grew older, a quiet dread that had lingered for years, etched deeper into her eyes with every wrinkle. Leslie was never one to intrude on her father and stepmother's private lives, but when she accidentally saw Betsy's prescriptions on the kitchen table, a wave of concern washed over her. It wasn't just the usual mild sedatives. There were prescriptions for acute anxiety, chronic insomnia, and silent panic attacks that no one had witnessed. These pills hadn't appeared by chance. Betsy had actively sought them out, requesting them from her doctor. She was always gentle, meticulous, always smiling in front of others. But now, sitting in this empty house, Leslie was no longer sure. Had their overwhelming silence concealed a secret, one meant only for the two of them? Old rumors suddenly resurfaced in Leslie's mind. Back in the 90s, when Gene first expressed his desire to leave Hollywood and live a simple life with Betsy, she had once said something that her closest friends never forgot. "If one of us goes, the other will follow." At the time, no one thought much of it. They assumed it was just a romantic notion, till death do us part. But now, sitting in the cold, empty house, Leslie couldn't help but piece the fragments together. The police found no signs of struggle or violence, no signs of forced entry, no hidden enemies lurking in the shadows, just two people who had been together for over 30 years, choosing to close a chapter of their lives together. Prescription pills were neatly placed beside them, not by accident, not carelessly. "I think my dad didn't want to go like this, but maybe he chose to leave with Betsy because of love," Leslie choked out as she spoke these words to a close friend over the phone in the middle of the night. She didn't cry, but her voice trembled as if standing on the edge of despair. She knew Gene Hackman, her father, was someone who cherished life. He had survived the many storms of Hollywood, weathered personal turmoil to live peacefully amidst the nature of Santa Fe. But she also knew that Gene had never let Betsy down, and if Betsy had truly pleaded or even just shown the faintest hint of fear in her eyes, Gene would not have refused. Some questions will forever remain unanswered. Some secrets exist only between two people, and no one else is allowed to touch them. Leslie understood that no matter how much of her life she dedicated to searching for the truth about that death pact, if it existed, it would follow her father and Betsy to a place beyond reach. Outside the window, the Santa Fe wind rustled through the trees, carrying with it the sound of whispers, like the murmurs of old souls, those who had chosen to walk together to the end of the road when there was nothing left to lose but the love they had for each other. That night, Leslie Hackman did not sleep, and neither did the house. There was a strange void called the haunted weeks, those eerie weeks when time seemed to be swallowed by darkness, so much so that when the final light filtered into the door of the luxurious Santa Fe estate, no one could be sure what had truly happened on February 26th. When the bodies of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa, along with their loyal dog, were discovered, the Santa Fe police were faced with a scene both peaceful and haunting. There were no signs of forced entry, no furniture displaced, no traces of violence. Yet the atmosphere seemed suffocating, as if every molecule of air in the house carried the mysterious whispers of two souls that had left this world. According to the initial report, the bodies of Gene and Betsy were in a state of slight decomposition. Not grotesque, but enough to show that the bodies had lost the integrity of life. This meant they had likely departed from this world not just a few hours or a day or two before they were found, but possibly many days, even weeks. This ambiguity opened a new door, a door leading into the darkest part of this story. The police knocked on every door, asking each neighbor when they last saw Gene and Betsy. The answers were strangely uniform. "I'm not sure. It feels like it's been a while. I don't think I've seen anyone come or go since mid-February. The door was always closed, the curtains drawn shut. I think they went on a trip." No one could remember the exact date. No one had seen anything unusual, except for the prolonged silence that clung to every brick, every window frame. Calls from friends and family, messages of concern, invitations to meet, all fell into emptiness, with no response, no refusals, only absolute silence, as if the house had become a tomb, burying the once lively people that friends had known. The police reviewed footage from the security cameras at the gate of the estate. The last data recorded was on February 13th, a short video showing Gene Hackman in a silver-gray sweater, slowly stepping onto the porch to collect the morning mail. He looked around the garden, bent down to pet the loyal old dog, then turned and went back inside, the door closing behind him. Since then, the cameras recorded nothing more. No deliveries, no neighbors visiting, no movement except for the branches swaying in the cold winter wind. Technicians concluded that the camera system had stopped working due to a technical malfunction, a common issue considering the system had been installed nearly 10 years ago. But coincidentally, this malfunction aligned perfectly with the theory of the haunted weeks, the empty void of time when no one knew what had happened behind the heavy wooden door. There was no trace of the last meal. The dishes in the kitchen were empty, and the refrigerator was neatly arranged with no sign that anyone had recently cooked or cleaned. The bed was made, the pillows arranged neatly. Everything was perfectly tidy to the point of being strange, as if Gene and Betsy had prepared everything for the house to become their final resting place. The police found a small notebook on the nightstand. The first pages recorded daily tasks, doctor's appointments, medication notes, reminders to call the gardener. But on the final pages, the handwriting began to change, slanted, with fragmented lines, like messages to themselves. If this is the last day, let it be peaceful. There was no clear will, no direct explanation, just fragmented pieces, as if they wanted to leave an unfinished picture for those remaining, for them to draw their own conclusions. What did they do in their final weeks? Perhaps Gene and Betsy sat together on the window seat in the living room, looking out at the garden where flowers still bloomed despite the harsh winter. Maybe they played the classical pieces they both loved, those melancholy sonatas by Chan, or the gentle piano melodies Betsy had played when she was young. Perhaps they simply sat in silence, hand in hand, needing no more words, for after more than 30 years together, words were no longer necessary. And maybe, together, they made the final decision. Not loudly, not fearfully, just two people who had completed their journey, choosing to leave together, closing the door on their lives in the house that had been their home. The police would never know the exact day they passed away. Only they knew what really happened behind the door of the Santa Fe estate. But what Leslie Hackman felt as she stood in the empty house was an elusive presence, as if the shadows of Gene and Betsy were still there, quietly watching, smiling at their daughter standing in the midst of the unfinished picture they had left behind. The mystery of those haunted weeks, those ethereal weeks, would forever remain a story belonging only to the two elderly souls who had chosen to walk together to the end of the road. From the moment Leslie Hackman stepped through the door of the Santa Fe estate, where her father, the legend Gene Hackman, and Betsy Arakawa were discovered, a strange feeling clung to her. Sadness, of course, but beneath the layers of sorrow, there was a small voice constantly whispering in her ear, "Something's not right." At first, she dismissed the thought. Betsy had been with Gene for over 3 decades, caring for him, worrying for him, loving him in ways Leslie couldn't. But the longer she looked at the eerily quiet house, the scattered pill bottles on the nightstand, the prescriptions Betsy had kept separately, the more her doubts grew. Betsy Arakawa, the woman who had entered Gene Hackman's life like a warm breeze in a cold, lonely winter, had, over the years, gradually turned that warm breeze into winds of control. Leslie remembered the times she visited her father when Betsy tried to hide her obvious discomfort. Anyone who approached Gene for too long was scrutinized by Betsy, even Leslie, Gene's only biological daughter from his first marriage. Betsy was jealous of Leslie, a sentiment that seemed unbelievable, but Gene's close friends had all spoken of it. Betsy viewed Gene as her personal possession. The fear of losing him made her more reclusive, closing off the family, holding on to a small world where only she and Gene existed as the two sole beings. As Gene grew older and his health declined, Betsy tightened her control. Medications, doctor's appointments, the menu, everything was decided by Betsy. Leslie sometimes wondered if Betsy truly loved her father, or if she loved the feeling of having complete control over his life. When the Santa Fe police released the list of prescription medications found in the house, Leslie shuddered. Heart medication, blood pressure pills. Of course, these made sense for Gene's age, but mixed in with the familiar prescriptions were a series of strong sedatives, even high-dose painkillers, medications typically prescribed to patients with terminal illnesses. Gene wasn't suffering from cancer, Gene wasn't terminally ill. So why had Betsy requested these kinds of medications from the doctor? Leslie recalled the last time she spoke to her father on the phone. Gene's voice sounded tired but still warm. He talked about the small vegetable garden that Betsy was tending, about an old movie they had just rewatched. There was no sign of despair, no mention of ending his life. So who made the decision? Who made? From old messages that Leslie found on Betsy's phone, the first clue appeared in December of the previous year. Betsy texted a close friend, "I'm afraid to live if Gene dies before me. I can't imagine a day without Gene by my side." In January, she texted again, "If I could, I would just want us to leave together, hand in hand." These messages were haunting. Not just simple confessions, but as if a plan was slowly being arranged. Did Betsy ever tell Gene about that fear? Or did she plant in his mind the beautiful image of a shared ending, where two elderly souls walk hand in hand through the final threshold? The police found a bottle of pills beside Betsy, with a few remaining, but they couldn't determine who took the pills first. Did Gene willingly do it, or did Betsy persuade him with sweet words or desperate tears? Or worse, had Betsy slipped the pills into the tea, into the warm soup she made every night, so that Gene never realized that each sip, each bite, brought him closer to the death that had already been arranged? Leslie flipped through her memories. Times when Betsy held Gene's hand in front of others, when she carefully adjusted his scarf, the way she looked at him as if he were her entire world. But now, everything seemed clouded. Could it have been deep love, or a sweet manipulation that had lasted for 30 years? Leslie didn't know, and in truth, she might not even want to know. What Leslie did know was that without Betsy, Gene wouldn't have lived in peace during his final years. Betsy loved Gene in her own way, a love that was obsessive and possessive, but it was that very love that ensured Gene was cared for with every meal, every nap. Yet at the same time, Leslie couldn't shake the fear that it was that same love that ended Gene's life. How much did Betsy love Gene, enough to care for him until the very end, or enough to decide how he would leave? The answer left with Betsy, the last pills, the whispers exchanged between the two in those final quiet weeks. All of it vanished with their last breath. The Santa Fe police found no signs of violence or coercion. No one knew who held whose hand first, who placed the last pill into whose mouth, and perhaps that truth belongs only to the two of them. Those who loved each other, bound themselves together, and crossed the final boundary between love and ending, between freedom and control, between life and death. In cases of double deaths, there is often something found. A handwritten note, a few text messages, or at least some signs leading up to it. But here, there was nothing. No letter from Gene, the man who had spent his life playing strong, intelligent, and resilient characters on screen. No explanation from Betsy, the woman who always appeared gentle but carried fears no one could see. They left in complete silence. What remained were only the silent pills, a few empty pill bottles, some sleeping pills scattered on the table, a few empty glasses by the bed. The police had hoped to find something, like security cameras, diaries, messages, emails, but the front door camera had stopped working since mid-February. Gene's journal stopped on Christmas. Both phones were empty, no calls, no unusual messages in the 3 weeks before they were found. The house remained silent. The preliminary conclusion from the Santa Fe police suggests that this was likely a consensual death, based on the evidence and medical records they had reviewed. There were no signs of Gene Hackman resisting, no signs of a struggle. But who can say Gene was fully aware? With the amount of sedatives Betsy had, it wouldn't have been hard for her to keep Gene in a semi-conscious state. Enough for him not to resist, but not necessarily in a state of consent. And what about Betsy? Was she the one who took the first pill? Or was it Gene, the man too tired after years of illness, choosing to hold the hand of the last woman in his life and walk together to the end of the road? The answer will forever be buried beneath the land of Santa Fe, from a beautiful house admired by architects for its blend of Southwestern American and Japanese styles. Gene and Betsy's villa has now become the haunted house of Santa Fe. People passing by look at the house with a different gaze, whispering about shadows behind the windows, flickering lights in the late hours, even though the house has been sealed and the power cut off. Every night, the wind of Santa Fe blows across the hills. The rustling of pine branches in front of the house sounds like whispers of untold secrets. This was once the home of a Hollywood legend. Now it has become a tomb, holding questions without answers. Gene Hackman was Popeye Doyle in the French Connection. He was Lex Luthor, legendary characters of toughness and resilience. But behind the spotlight, Gene Hackman ultimately became the main character in a real-life tragedy, a tragedy of silence and dependence. After leaving Hollywood, Gene withdrew into a small world with Betsy. No more stage lights, no more red carpets, just the peaceful passing of days, drinking coffee in the early mornings, gazing out at the garden, and in the evenings, watching his old films on the screen. Gene Hackman ended his life as a frail old man, holding the hand of a wife consumed by a fear of loneliness, together leaving this world. Gene Hackman left an invaluable cinematic legacy to the world, but alongside that there remains an indelible shadow. The image of Gene Hackman not on the screen but in the bed, his cold hand, and Betsy, surrounded by the scent of sedatives and the deadly silence, haunting even those who once admired him. Betsy, the woman once hailed as Gene's last love, is now enveloped in questions. Love or control, care or manipulation, partner or coercion. No one answers, no one knows, and perhaps no one truly wants to dig deeper. After the police made their preliminary conclusion, Leslie Hackman left Santa Fe. She didn't fight to reopen the case, nor did she speak to the press. Some truths are better left buried, some doors should remain closed forever, because when opened, they only reveal coldness, loneliness, and voids that can never be filled. Gene Hackman, a Hollywood legend, a father, a husband, passed away not amid applause or final praise, but within four walls of silence, with the woman who loved him obsessively, leaving behind a brilliant legacy and a question mark that will last forever. Leslie always believed that after his first failed marriage, her father deserved a peaceful love. Betsy Arakawa, the woman nearly 2 decades younger than Gene Hackman, came like a gentle breeze in the cold winter, caring for Gene patiently, listening as he talked about his old roles, the memories once celebrated by audiences, but ones he wished to forget. Yet even Leslie couldn't deny that there were moments when she felt Betsy loved Gene to the point of possessing him. The unanswered messages when Leslie called her father, the visits where Betsy's eyes couldn't hide a hint of suspicion. When hugging Gene, Betsy was always gentle, sweet. But Leslie knew that sometimes the sweet control was more suffocating than any command. After the police had cleared the scene, Leslie finally dared to enter her parents' bedroom. Everything was nearly intact, but it was precisely this intactness that made her shiver. A glass of water by the bedside, a bottle of sedatives neatly placed, the blanket folded halfway as if someone had woken up and changed their mind. There were no signs of a struggle, no screams or signs of fear, only silence. The terrifying silence of 2 people waiting to leave together. Leslie couldn't stop wondering whether Gene Hackman, her father, had truly consented, or if Betsy, terrified of losing him, had taken his hand and dragged both of them into the abyss. Betsy loved Gene, no one could deny that. But how much did she love him? Loved him to the point of being afraid to live without him, to the point of choosing death for both, believing it was the only way to keep Gene forever? To forgive or seek the truth? The police called it a mutual death agreement. But was that consent really fair? Leslie knew that there were couples who had spent their lives together, sharing everything, and in the end, chose to go together. But usually, there would be a farewell letter, explanations to comfort the children and grandchildren, easing the pain for those left behind. Gene Hackman left nothing, nor did Betsy, only the pills and two cold bodies lying next to each other. What could Leslie do? Reopen the case, force the police to investigate further when she knew it wouldn't change the outcome, or close everything with a prayer, praying for her parents to rest in peace, leaving the secrets behind the Santa Fe door forever. Before the empty house where her parents once lived, Leslie whispered a prayer. Not for justice, not to uncover the final truth, but for forgiveness. Forgiveness for the stepmother who loved her father too much. Forgiveness for the father who silently accepted or gave up. Forgiveness for herself for not recognizing the signs before it was too late. The Santa Fe wind blew again, carrying with it the quiet prayers of a daughter standing between forgiveness and the longing for truth. She didn't need to know who took the first pill. She only hoped that in another world, Gene Hackman could smile with relief and Betsy could love without fear. The door of the house closed behind Leslie. The secrets of Santa Fe slept peacefully. The story ended, but the pain and love would forever remain. Thank you all for watching this video. Gene Hackman will always be a legend in the film industry, and the stories from his family will continue to live on in the hearts of many. We extend our deepest condolences to the Hackman family and hope that the wonderful memories of him will forever be remembered. If you found this video meaningful, please leave a like, share it with your friends, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about Gene Hackman's legacy? Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our latest videos. See you in the next video. When the police and FBI began investigating the mysterious death of legendary actor Gene Hackman and his wife, no one could have imagined that the truth behind it would surpass all expectations. Recently, investigators decided to tear up the old flooring in Hackman's mansion, and what they discovered underneath left the entire team breathless. These clues could change the entire story, and you won't believe what they found. Join us as we uncover the truth in this video. Gene Hackman's house in Santa Fe. Hackman's first encounter with Santa Fe happened during film projects in the area, and it left him with a sense of magic about the place. This fascination led him and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, to seek a permanent home there. They purchased a property that required extensive renovations at the time and collaborated with the local firm Studio Architecture. Hackman transformed the house into a space that reflected his unique vision, blending Southwestern architectural elements with personal touches. His new home sat atop a high hill, spanning 12 acres covered with piñon trees, just a few miles from Santa Fe, offering a breathtaking 360-degree view that extended all the way to the Colorado mountains. He was drawn to Santa Fe after working on several films in the area and felt a certain magic in the place. He said he purchased the property because of its location and later reached out to Santa Fe architects Harry Dapel and Steven Samuelson of Studio Architecture to help him transform the house into the personal space he envisioned. Transforming the house. The house was in terrible shape at the time, Samuelson said. It was a concrete building from the 1950s that had been abandoned and deteriorated. But it was a great location, and the foundation was well placed on the land. Hackman and Betsy Arakawa, who shared the home, didn't want to recreate the traditional Pueblo architecture. Instead, they prioritized spaciousness, natural light, and an open floor plan with French windows, features not easily achieved in traditional adobe design. As a result, the house became a blend of styles, part Pueblo, part colonial New Mexico, and part Spanish Baroque. The house isn't purely one style at all, Samuelson said. It has a raw quality, almost like a barn converted into a home, both expansive and cozy at the same time. The first step in creating a sense of spaciousness was removing 90% of the roof, allowing the ceilings to be raised up to 20 feet in some areas. The interior spaces were reimagined, and walls were torn down to fulfill Hackman's desire for large, open rooms. 3 small rooms were combined into the heart of the home, a vast living area featuring original tree trunk columns, incredibly comfortable sofas, and a state-of-the-art sound system to fill the space with the music Hackman loved. I wanted a large room with the feel of a great hall, with other rooms opening off of it, without being separated by too many walls, Hackman shared. It's completely different from my other homes. My Montecito house is much more formal. Hackman brought a sense of what he called a cinematic illusion to his living space, describing how the interiors were designed. He wanted the home to have the refinement of a place that had evolved over decades, gradually acquiring layers and character over time. The house is new, but we tried to make it feel like it's been here for 100 years or more, he explained. Plastering is great, but I wanted water stains, as if there had been leaks over the years, he said. I wanted some of the plaster to be darkened, as if it had been stained by smoke. He admitted that he had to do a lot of convincing with the plaster workers because this was exactly what he wanted. But the result was walls that subtly transitioned from one shade to another, creating distinct spaces without disrupting the sense of openness. For example, in the entryway, a rich teal gradually fades into a soft brown, forming a seamless color bridge between the exterior and interior. In that same spirit, the new ceiling beams were repurposed, beaten with chains, and repeatedly painted and stripped to create layers of aged patina. Hackman also wanted stamped tin ceilings in certain rooms of the house. When he couldn't find any available tin patterns that satisfied him, a local craftsman was brought in to create exactly what he envisioned. Hackman was involved in every aspect of the home. He determined the floor plan for the architects, specified every detail in the kitchen, and even took part in the demolition work himself. As a talented painter, he would sometimes mix colors on his palette himself to guide the workers on exactly what he wanted. Although he was on set for most of the construction period, Hackman remained closely involved in every aspect of the project. He was a very engaged client, very artistic and extremely detail-oriented, Samuelson said. We had to call and send sketches constantly, or else a few days later we'd get a call saying, "Hello, this is Gene Hackman. Do you remember me?" In addition, Betsy Arakawa was frequently present at the construction site, consulting with Hackman over the phone and sending pictures of the ongoing work. When it came time to decorate the house, they didn't want to stick to a pure Santa Fe style. Hackman explained, "We bought a few things in Santa Fe, some others came from auctions in New York, an antique store in Germany that Betsy and I found, and from Los Angeles. It's a beautiful combination of soft Southwestern-style pieces and sharp-edged antiques." The newly purchased items, as well as furniture from Hackman's Montecito home, were blended by Santa Fe designers Ken Figueroa and Glenn Gomez, who the couple described as their interior design partners. The softness of the colors and lines of Santa Fe and the traditionalism of European antiques were connected by large, colorful accessories to scale. Just as in their architectural style, there was no effort to turn the house into a museum of New Mexico art and craftsmanship. Some of the most effective pieces came from Morocco, including spice racks painted with intricate designs that resembled mosaic paintings. If you want to know what really happened and uncover the shocking details of this investigation, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our videos. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about the FBI's findings? We look forward to hearing from you. The house was designed as a retreat for short periods, possibly 2 months scattered throughout the year when Hackman was not on film sets. During these times, the focus was on comfort and tranquility, free from the interruptions of guests or constant parties. If he felt like painting, Hackman could drive his truck to the mountains, bringing along oil paintings and canvases. Otherwise, he would spend hours reading books and listening to music in the living room, watching the desert change colors and the clouds move across the surrounding mountains of Santa Fe. Hackman embraced a simple and creative lifestyle. After retiring from acting in 2004, he dedicated his time to painting and writing, drawing inspiration from his peaceful surroundings. His daily routine often included morning walks, studio work for his art, and evenings spent with Betsy, enjoying the serene atmosphere in their home. This house served as a sanctuary for Hackman, shielding him from the public eye and allowing him to pursue personal passions without distraction. Despite his reclusive lifestyle, Hackman still maintained connections with the local community. He was occasionally seen at local events and supported regional arts initiatives, reflecting his appreciation for the vibrant culture of Santa Fe. However, he greatly valued his privacy and protected his home as a sacred space, far removed from the noisy world of entertainment. Gene Hackman's married life. Gene Hackman, one of Hollywood's most famous actors, lived a personal life filled with love, challenges, and eventual redemption. He was married twice, first to Faye Maltese and later to Betsy Arakawa. His journey through marriage reflects the sacrifices and challenges that come with a dedication to the acting profession. While his first marriage ended in heartbreak, his second marriage brought him peace and stability. Hackman met Faye Maltese in the early 1950s, when he was still an aspiring actor struggling to make ends meet. At the time, he hadn't yet made a mark in Hollywood and had to take on various odd jobs to survive. Faye, who was a secretary, saw something special in him despite his financial hardships. The couple fell in love, and in 1956, they got married. They built their life from scratch, moving from one small apartment to another as Hackman worked tirelessly to establish himself in the film industry. In the early years of their marriage, money was tight, and Hackman often doubted whether he would ever find success. Faye stood by him, providing emotional and financial support as he attended auditions and took on small roles to make ends meet. Shortly after his divorce, Hackman found new love with Betsy Arakawa, a classical pianist. They met in the early 1980s when she worked at a fitness center in Los Angeles. Hackman, by then in his 50s, was drawn to Betsy's intelligence, kindness, and passion for music. Their relationship developed slowly, and by 1991, they were married. Unlike his first marriage, which had been marked by career struggles and separation, Hackman's second marriage brought him peace and stability. By then, Hackman had achieved great success in Hollywood and no longer needed to prove himself. Together, Gene and Betsy built a peaceful life away from Hollywood, settling in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Unlike his first marriage, where fame created tension, Hackman's second marriage flourished in privacy. The couple stayed together for over 3 decades, with Betsy providing the... By then, Hackman had achieved great success in Hollywood and no longer needed to prove himself. Together, Gene and Betsy built a peaceful life away from Hollywood, settling in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Unlike his first marriage, where fame created tension, Hackman's second marriage flourished in privacy. The couple stayed together for over 3 decades, with Betsy providing the companionship and support that Hackman had lacked during his years as an up-and-coming star. By the 1970s, Gene Hackman had become a Hollywood star, winning an Oscar for his role in The French Connection. However, success came at a cost. Let's take a look at how Hackman relentlessly pursued his career in Hollywood and how it affected his relationship with his children, leading to years of distance and complexity. Hackman's complex relationship with his children over the years. Hackman always kept his personal life, including his children, private in interviews. In 1989, he told film critic John C. Tibbets that the audience was drawn to him because they could relate to him as an ordinary man, explaining, "I like to keep my personal life as normal as possible so that in art, people can let go and reach out." Hackman reflected on his early career days when he appeared on Larry King Live. When the host, Larry King, asked him how he coped with the transition from a lackluster career to one of fame, Hackman replied, "Actually, I didn't cope very well. I took care of my family. My family never lacked for anything, but I was so fascinated by old Hollywood, the mystique of it. Even though I never participated in it, I was really enamored with being a part of it and that I could be anyone and do anything I wanted." Hackman and Maltese welcomed their first child, son Christopher Allen Hackman, in 1960. The 2-time Oscar winner sat down with journalist Lita Powell Drake in February 1984 for an interview about the film Misunderstood. When Drake asked Hackman if there would ever come a day when he stopped hugging his son, who was in his 20s at the time, and instead shook his hand, he responded, "No, we still hug each other to this day, and I thank God for that." He added, "I don't think there will ever be a moment where we have to shake hands. That was really a big challenge for me in the film, and one of the coldest things a person can do is to be unaware and insensitive to the needs of a child who needs to be embraced in their father's arms." Hackman also spoke about fatherhood in an interview in 2011. When asked if he had any advice for his son, Hackman said, "I lost touch with my son about advice when he was young." He continued, "It might be because I was away so much, making films at locations when he was at an age where he needed support and guidance. It was really difficult for me to be away for 3 months, then come home and start giving him orders." Reflecting on his journey to becoming a writer, Hackman shared about his son's early career aspirations in an interview with Empire magazine in January 2020. "My son once thought he wanted to be an actor, and while he was in New York, I wrote a few small monologues for him. He said, 'I think that's where I started. I really liked it. Ideas kept popping into my head, and I wrote them down.'" Hackman and Maltese welcomed their second child, daughter Elizabeth Gene Hackman, in August 1962. Not much is known about Elizabeth, as Hackman rarely spoke about his family in interviews. While he didn't specify which of his two daughters he was referring to, he did share a heartfelt story about a tough period in his career during the 70s and 80s. "I had to borrow my daughter's car to go to auditions in Hollywood," he told Cigar Aficionado magazine in 2000. "I was barely scraping by, taking almost anything that was offered and trying to make it work." Elizabeth also attended a few events with her father, including the premiere of Superman in December 1978, where he played the villain Lex Luthor at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. As for playing Lex Luthor in Superman, he said, "It was great. I have to say, like a license to steal." Many years later, in October 1996, she was photographed at the premiere of Hackman's film The Chamber in Beverly Hills Khalifa, along with her sister and stepmother Arakawa. Hackman and Maltese welcomed their third child, daughter Leslie Ann Hackman, in October 1966. Like her siblings, there is little information about Hackman's youngest daughter. In 1984, journalist Bobby Wan interviewed Hackman about the film Misunderstood and asked if the film made him feel more emotional as a father or as a son, with a tense relationship with his own father. Hackman replied, "They almost only had me with my children in working on it, in dealing with the misunderstandings between father and child." He talked about his role. "My youngest daughter watched the movie, and she was very moved by it. But I think she was affected because it was a film, not because I was in it. She liked it as a movie and introduced it to her girlfriends. They're going to see the screening next week. She really liked it, and I hope the older kids like it too." Hackman made rare comments about his children in an interview with the Irish Independent in August 2000, noting that they helped him decide to continue acting rather than pursue a career behind the camera. After acquiring the rights to Silence of the Lambs, he initially planned to make his directorial debut, but ultimately turned down the job, a decision he said he had no regrets about. He shared, "I didn't think twice about that decision," and added, "My kids helped me see that it wasn't the best thing for me." He also acknowledged that being the child of a famous person was difficult, adding, "I couldn't always be home with them as they grew up and lived in California. My success always weighed heavily on them." Despite the complex relationship with his father, Hackman's children loved him dearly and were shocked to hear the news of his tragic death. The mysterious death of Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Arakawa were found dead in their home in Santa Fe, New Mexico, on February 26, 2025, shocking the world and leaving everyone searching for answers. 9 days after the Hollywood legend Gene Hackman, his wife Betsy Arakawa, and one of their dogs were discovered dead in their 9,000-square-foot home in Santa Fe. The circumstances surrounding their deaths remain mysterious, with many questions arising about what really happened inside their secluded home. The couple was discovered when a maintenance worker, unable to reach them for several days, decided to check on their well-being. Looking through a window, he saw Gene Hackman lying motionless in the living room and immediately called security, who then contacted emergency services. Upon entering the house, authorities found Hackman and Arakawa deceased, along with one of their 3 dogs. The other 2 dogs were still alive, adding another layer of mystery to the discovery, which left everyone deeply concerned. When officials arrived, the bodies had already begun to decompose, indicating that they had been dead for several days. Investigators estimated that their deaths occurred around February 17, 2025, 9 days before they were found. Initially, authorities searched for signs of unauthorized entry, criminal activity, or external injuries on the bodies, but they found nothing. The house showed no signs of a struggle, and no valuables were missing. One crucial question that puzzled investigators was why neither Hackman nor Arakawa called for emergency help. An autopsy revealed that Hackman's heart had stopped on February 17th, as indicated by data from his pacemaker. However, the cause of Arakawa's death remained unclear, as there were no immediate signs of injury or poisoning. Carbon monoxide poisoning was ruled out after tests came back negative, and there were no gas leaks in the house. As details began to emerge, experts and the public started speculating about what might have happened. One prominent theory is that Hackman, who had a history of heart disease, may have suffered a fatal heart attack and collapsed in the living room. Arakawa, upon discovering him, might have been shocked or experienced extreme stress. Some experts suggest that she could have suffered from broken heart syndrome, Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, a condition triggered by intense grief or trauma, which can cause severe heart irregularities leading to sudden death. If Arakawa found Hackman already deceased, the shock could have caused her to experience acute heart failure, leaving her unable to call for help. Another theory considers the possibility of an underlying medical condition affecting both individuals, although toxicology reports have yet to provide a clear answer. Some speculate whether they may have had an agreement in case of a medical emergency, possibly deciding not to call 911 for personal reasons. The case became even more complicated due to the condition of their bodies. The dry, hot environment in their home led to a natural mummification process, making it difficult for forensic pathologists to determine the exact time and cause of death. The question of the isolation of the house. Additionally, questions have arisen about why their house was so isolated, despite having security and staff, yet no one checked on them sooner, leading to speculation about their increasingly secluded lifestyle in recent years. Hackman had withdrawn from the public eye after retiring from acting in 2004, preferring a quiet life away from Hollywood. The impact of Hackman and Arakawa's death. The sudden and mysterious nature of their deaths has sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry. Gene Hackman is regarded as one of the greatest actors of his time, renowned for his powerful performances in films like Unforgiven and The French Connection. Tributes from colleagues and directors have poured in, with Clint Eastwood calling him a close friend he will deeply miss, and Francis Ford Coppola remembering him as a true legend of cinema. Betsy Arakawa, although not widely known in Hollywood, was deeply respected by those who knew her. She was Hackman's devoted partner for many decades, and their relationship was considered a rare example of lasting love in the entertainment industry. Fans and conspiracy enthusiasts have flooded social media, with some speculating that there may be more to the story than what has been revealed. The lack of timely medical intervention and the unusual circumstances have led to widespread speculation. While officials have confirmed that no foul play is suspected, authorities continue to investigate the case, with toxicology reports and further forensic analysis pending. Unanswered questions. While the most plausible theory points to a tragic chain of natural events, with Hackman dying from heart failure, followed by Arakawa's death potentially due to stress, many questions remain unanswered. Why didn't they call for medical help? Could there have been an undetected environmental factor in the house? Did their deep bond lead to them passing away together, unable to live without each other? The FBI continues to investigate. As the world mourns the loss of a legendary actor and his beloved wife, the mystery surrounding their final days continues. Whether it's a heartbreaking coincidence or something more complex, their story will be remembered as one of the most intriguing and tragic endings in Hollywood. Investigators are still struggling to determine the exact cause of death, but what the FBI has planned will surely surprise you. The FBI is dismantling the old floorboards from Gene Hackman's mansion. At a recent press conference, Santa Fe County Sheriff Daniel Morales addressed concerns surrounding the investigation. "I'm not saying it's unusual, but it's not normal to find two people deceased in a home," he said. Speaking to a crowd of reporters, he acknowledged the unusual circumstances of the case but kept specific findings from the FBI under wraps. "We are working closely with federal agencies to ensure that nothing is overlooked. At this point, I can't comment on specific details, but I can confirm that additional investigative measures are being taken within the premises of the house," Sheriff Morales stated. Expanded investigation. Officials initially focused on the cause of death for Hackman and Arakawa, but the answers remain unclear. However, with no signs of external trauma, no carbon monoxide poisoning, and no evidence of criminal activity, investigators appear to be broadening their search for answers. Now, they believe the house itself may hold hidden secrets. As news of the FBI's actions spreads, speculation has begun to grow. Some theorists suggest that Hackman, known for his reclusive lifestyle in his later years, may have concealed a long-held secret in his home. Could there be a hidden room, a concealed safe, or even long-lost documents buried beneath the floor? Other theories about Hackman's past. Others wonder if this investigation might be connected to something from Hackman's past, considering his illustrious career and relationships in Hollywood. Could there be something deeper behind this story? Some online forums even speculate about the possibility of secret documents, concealed assets, or evidence related to an old crime. Although officials have declined to confirm any specific suspicions, forensic experts believe that the FBI's search methods indicate they are looking for more than just clues related to the deaths of the couple. Unconventional criminal investigation. Tearing up the floorboards is not a standard procedure in most death investigations unless there is reason to believe something important is hidden beneath. Potential possibilities include whether there could be traces of criminal activity that were previously overlooked, or if something had occurred in the house in the past. Could the floorboards hold hidden forensic evidence? Old houses sometimes have secret compartments built into the floors and walls. Could Hackman have hidden? Hackman's family, as well as close friends, have remained silent, fueling speculation that something major is about to be revealed. Furthermore, the presence of the FBI instead of just local authorities suggests that federal investigators are particularly interested in this case. This raises questions about what they might suspect. Currently, Hackman's estate remains sealed off as forensic teams continue their search. FBI officials have declined to give a timeline for their investigation, leaving many wondering if there are more shocking discoveries waiting to be uncovered. Could Hackman's home hold a secret that could change the entire course of this case? And more importantly, what will the FBI find beneath the floorboards of his legendary estate? Gene Hackman's health battle. Hackman faced several health issues in his later years. Struggles with heart disease, previous injuries, and the natural effects of aging became significant factors in his life after retiring. One of the most well-documented health battles Hackman faced was with heart disease. In 1990, when he was 60 years old, Hackman suffered a severe heart attack, which forced him to reassess his lifestyle. This was a wake-up call that led him to adopt healthier habits and reduce his workload in Hollywood. In 2004, Hackman made the difficult decision to retire completely from his acting career. Although he never explicitly stated that health issues were the sole reason, it was clear that his body needed rest. By this time, he had undergone various medical treatments, including the implantation of a pacemaker to regulate his heart condition. As Hackman entered his 70s and 80s, he experienced the physical effects of aging. Reports indicated that he struggled with movement, often requiring assistance for daily tasks. While his mind remained sharp, his physical condition prevented him from appearing in public. Fans rarely saw him appear in the media in his later years, as he preferred a quiet, secluded life in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Occasionally, paparazzi managed to capture images of him, showing an older man who had clearly slowed down but still maintained his activities in his own way, such as cycling, gardening, and enjoying time with his wife, Betsy Arakawa. In 2012, Hackman survived a serious bicycle accident in Florida when a truck struck him while he was cycling at the age of 82. Such an accident could have been life-threatening, but Hackman made a miraculous recovery. This event reminded the world of his resilience, though it also raised concerns about his vulnerability. Despite battling many health issues, Hackman lived into his 90s. However, reports indicate that his health had deteriorated in the years leading up to his death in 2025. Close friends stated that he had become weaker, with increasing difficulty moving, although he remained mentally alert. When Hackman and his wife were found dead in their home in February 2025, many speculated whether his cardiovascular condition played a role in his death. Data from his pacemaker confirmed that his heart had stopped on February 17th, but the cause of death remained unclear. Some experts theorized that his wife, in a state of shock after discovering him unresponsive, may have died from heart failure due to the stress. Gene Hackman was a fighter, both on screen and in life. Despite facing numerous health challenges, he lived a long and fulfilling life, choosing to spend his final years in peace, away from Hollywood. His legacy as an actor remains intact, but his resilience in dealing with health challenges is also highly admirable. With the surprising findings in the investigation, we may have only scratched the surface of a larger mystery. Were Hackman and his wife truly victims of an unexpected accident? Or are there strange revelations that the FBI is slowly uncovering? This story is sure to continue making waves in the public for the time to come. Thank you all for watching the video, and don't forget to share your thoughts on what might be hidden under Gene Hackman's floor. Stay tuned with us, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any important updates. See you in the next videos. A shocking rumor is spreading, claiming that Hollywood legend Gene Hackman had planned to reveal some big names connected to the Epstein scandal just before his death. Is this true or not? In this video, we will dive deep into the rumors surrounding Hackman's final days and explore whether he was truly preparing to reveal explosive secrets or if this is just an unfounded conspiracy theory. Join us on this journey, keep asking questions, and demand answers. We cannot let these secrets be buried forever. Hit like, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments below, because the truth always deserves to be known. Gene Hackman, a Hollywood legend, an irreplaceable icon of the silver screen, his name forever linked with iconic roles in Unforgiven, The French Connection, and many other timeless films. For decades, he was admired not only for his exceptional talent, but also for his private lifestyle, staying away from the scandals of the entertainment industry. But then, on a fateful day, the news of Gene Hackman and his wife's sudden passing shook the world. What made everything even more suspicious was the strange coincidence of timing, as the major event, the release of Jeffrey Epstein's client list, happened on that very same day. The headlines that day were buzzing with surprising names, as the long-awaited client list was finally revealed, featuring numerous prominent figures ranging from politicians and business tycoons to Hollywood stars. People eagerly awaited the truth to be exposed, secrets that could no longer be hidden. But amidst the media frenzy, another shocking piece of information surfaced. Gene Hackman and his wife were found dead. At this point, questions began to arise. How could this be such a coincidence? A legendary actor with clear ties to the elite passing away on the very day the Epstein list was made public. Could there be a secret buried with him? As the news spread, people began to scrutinize the details surrounding the event. First was the location. Gene Hackman and his wife were found at their private home, a place known for its absolute security. There were no signs of break-in, no reports of any prior trouble. Everything seemed too perfect, too clean. Next was the timing. Why exactly on the day the Epstein list was made public? If it was just a coincidence, it would surely be one of the strangest coincidences in history. Hackman's loyal fans immediately took to social media to voice their suspicions, sparking debates that led to a wave of conspiracy theories. Some believed Hackman might have had crucial information about the Epstein case, while others speculated that he may have been threatened or even forced into eternal silence. So, was Gene Hackman connected to Jeffrey Epstein? Prior to this, there was no documentation or evidence confirming any relationship between him and the disgraced financier. However, when the list was released, many immediately checked to see if his name appeared on it. The result was that Gene Hackman's name was not present. But that doesn't necessarily mean he was completely unaware of the scandal. Hackman had been active in the film industry for decades, with extensive connections to many influential figures. He worked with directors, producers, and actors who are now suspected of being linked to Epstein. Could he have known something? Could he have been privy to secrets that some people wanted to keep hidden? Another strange detail surfaced when an anonymous source claimed that Hackman had expressed concerns about the dark forces controlling Hollywood. While there is no concrete evidence, this only deepened the suspicion. Could he have been under surveillance? Did he receive any? Could he have known something? Could he have been privy to secrets that some people wanted to keep hidden? Another strange detail surfaced when an anonymous source claimed that Hackman had expressed concerns about the dark forces controlling Hollywood. While there is no concrete evidence, this only deepened the suspicion. Could he have been under surveillance? Did he receive any warnings? If you want to stay updated on more intriguing stories and breaking news about prominent events, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to get the latest videos from us. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about these theories? We look forward to hearing from you so we can discuss and explore more captivating stories together. A Reddit post immediately caused a stir. Was Hackman planning to reveal something? Did he know too much? And is this how they silenced him? The questions remain unanswered, but one thing is certain. This story cannot simply be brushed aside. Gene Hackman passed away on a day when the world was buzzing with shocking information. Was it just a coincidence or part of a larger mystery? Did he really know something that some people wanted to keep hidden? The answer is still a mystery, but one thing is clear. The public won't let this story fade away easily. When the list was leaked online, major media outlets quickly got involved. People were searching for familiar faces, for shocking names. Famous figures from billionaires, politicians to movie stars were mentioned, one by one, but amidst the sea of names, Gene Hackman was absent. For many, this was a relief. Hackman had always been known as a talented actor with a private life and rarely involved in Hollywood scandals. But instead of calming all speculations, Hackman's absence from the list raised even more questions. Could some names have been omitted to protect influential people? And more importantly, did Hackman know something that some people didn't want to be revealed? Was the list altered? One of the most debated issues on forums is the accuracy of the Epstein list. Some people believe the list was altered before reaching the public. Documents related to Epstein have been tightly controlled ever since the case began. Many key documents have mysteriously disappeared, and numerous witnesses have either remained silent or withdrawn from investigations. A journalist who has been following the Epstein case from the beginning spoke out, "Do you really think we have the complete list? How many names were removed before the public ever saw it?" And this is where Gene Hackman reappears in the discussions. Some people believe that if Hackman truly intended to reveal something, he might have possessed a complete version of the list, an uncensored version. But if that's the case, where did he get it from? And more importantly, who would want to silence him? Although Gene Hackman's name is not on the list, that doesn't mean he is completely unrelated to the case. With over 50 years in the entertainment industry, Hackman had relationships with many influential figures. He worked with several directors, actors, and powerful producers, some of whom are now suspected of being involved with Epstein. Throughout his career, Hackman always kept himself separate from the glamorous parties of Hollywood. He left the film industry in 2004 and moved to live a simple life in New Mexico. But could it be that he saw something that made him want to withdraw from Hollywood? Another theory suggests, if Hackman had no direct connection to Epstein, could he have heard or known something that someone didn't want him to reveal? While Hackman's name wasn't on the list, many other powerful figures were included. Hollywood, Washington, Wall Street, each sector had its representatives. Some influential figures immediately denied the allegations, while others chose to remain silent. Articles continued to be published, revealing new details, but the key point was that no one on the list faced serious legal consequences. Some investigations were opened, but then everything gradually quieted down. Followers of the case began to wonder, why is it that every time the truth starts to surface, it gets buried again? The silence from mainstream media also raises suspicions. Major media outlets only mention certain names while overlooking the most influential figures. As everything became chaotic, another theory began to spread. Could Gene Hackman have planned to reveal something important, and perhaps someone wanted to ensure he couldn't do so? A mysterious anonymous post on a forum sent chills down many spines. If Hackman had something to say, we will never hear it. They've made sure of that. Those who believe in this conspiracy theory point out that the timing of Hackman's death is too coincidental to be just an accident. If he truly had important information, what happened to it? Who had the strongest motive to ensure it would never be made public? Regardless of what the truth is, one thing is clear. The Epstein list is not a simple story. Too many questions remain unanswered. Did Hackman really know something important? How many times has this list been altered before being released to the public? Why haven't the biggest names been brought to justice? Until these questions are answered, the Epstein case and the mysteries surrounding Gene Hackman will continue to be a contentious topic. And for those who believe Hackman holds the truth, one thing is certain: they will not stop searching for answers. Particularly, how many times has this list been altered before being released to the public? Why haven't the biggest names been brought to justice? Until these questions are answered, the Epstein case and the mysteries surrounding Gene Hackman will continue to be a contentious topic. And for those who believe Hackman holds the truth, one thing is certain: they will not stop searching for answers. A particularly intriguing theory has gained a lot of attention. Hackman might have possessed a secret that someone didn't want him to reveal. Gene Hackman is not a name commonly associated with scandals in the media. He lived a private life, staying away from the noise of Hollywood. However, according to some sources, he recently exhibited unusual behavior. A longtime friend of Hackman, who requested to remain anonymous, revealed to a local newspaper that he seemed worried about something. "I don't know what it is, but it's big. He told me there are things better left unsaid, but sometimes the truth has to come out." These words have sent chills down many people's spines. Hackman may have been holding on to a monumental truth, one so dangerous that it caused him to fear for his safety. And if so, could this have been the reason for his death? Another source, someone who worked with Hackman in his final years, also mentioned an enigmatic remark he made before his death. "They think they buried everything, but they are wrong." What did this statement mean? Who were the "they" Hackman was referring to, and what had been buried? Just before his death, Hackman made a call to an old friend, an investigative journalist who had been looking into the Epstein case. The contents of the conversation were never revealed, but according to close sources, Hackman inquired about the Epstein list. Why would someone with no direct connection to Epstein be interested in this list? Was he trying to find a specific name, or worse, was he preparing to reveal something? Shortly after Hackman's death, it was discovered that some documents from his home had gone missing, including notes, letters, and even some of his old emails. Hackman was not the type to keep trivial documents, so if he held on to anything, it was surely something of significance. One of the strangest details was a hard drive Hackman frequently used. According to a close friend, he had kept it very carefully. But after his death, the hard drive vanished. It was gone, as if it had never existed. So what did this hard drive contain? Could it have held important documents about Epstein or evidence of something bigger? An investigative journalist claimed that Gene Hackman may have sent an important email just before his death, but this email was never found. There's a theory that this email may have been remotely deleted or even blocked before it could reach its recipient. A bolder theory suggests that Hackman may have sent this email to a journalist or an organization, but they were silenced through threats. Is this the truth? Did Hackman attempt to reveal something but was stopped by someone? If the theory about Hackman's secret is true, then the most important question is, who had the motive to silence him? The Epstein list is filled with the most powerful names in the world. If Hackman held information that could expose part of this system, then he was certainly a threat. But is that all, or is there another possibility? Hackman may not only have known about the Epstein list, but also understood how the entire system operated. Some conspiracy theories suggest that Hackman might have known about a larger, more secretive network, beyond just the Epstein case. If this is true, then the motive to silence him becomes even stronger. After Hackman's death, no one can answer the crucial questions. What did the missing documents contain? Who deleted? Some conspiracy theories suggest that Hackman might have known about a larger, more secretive network beyond just the Epstein case. If this is true, then the motive to silence him becomes even stronger. After Hackman's death, no one can answer the crucial questions. What did the missing documents contain? Who deleted Hackman's emails? Did Hackman truly plan to reveal something? Some believe that although Hackman has passed away, the truth he held may still be out there, waiting to be discovered. A journalist who worked with him revealed that Hackman had a habit of recording important thoughts in a private notebook. If that notebook still exists, it could be the key to everything. But does the notebook still exist, or has it also been erased from history? Will the truth be buried or exposed? Gene Hackman may have left this world, but his secrets may still be there, waiting to be uncovered. If there's one thing for certain, it's that people won't stop searching for the truth. Hackman once said, "The truth has a way of coming out. It always does." Perhaps he was right, and if anyone thinks the truth will be hidden forever, they may have to face a different truth. The truth never disappears. Close associates of Gene Hackman reveal that before his death, he had a mysterious conversation with an old friend in the journalism industry. This conversation took place just a few days before Hackman passed away. An anonymous source disclosed that Gene was worried about something. He mentioned that he had discovered something big, something that could shake everything in ways no one could expect. This friend later tried to reach out to Hackman several times, but received no response. When hearing of Hackman's death, the person couldn't help but feel a chill. Did he know something he wasn't supposed to know? Although Gene Hackman was not the type of person involved in Hollywood scandals, some have wondered if there was any connection between Hackman and the powerful figures associated with Epstein in the 80s and 90s. Hackman was one of the most influential stars in Hollywood. He not only worked with many famous directors, but also had connections with some of the wealthiest and most influential people. Some sources suggest that Hackman attended exclusive events for the elite, where names now suspected to be linked to Epstein also appeared. While there is no direct evidence showing Hackman's involvement in this network, if he was indirectly connected, it's very likely that he knew more than what has been publicly revealed. History has witnessed many cases of people who knew too much about secret systems and underground criminal networks meeting tragic ends. Hackman could be just another case in the long list of suspicious deaths. Some notable examples include Gary Webb, 2004, an investigative journalist who exposed the CIA's connection to drug cartels, found with 2 gunshot wounds to the head, and although the police ruled it a suicide, many believed it was an assassination. Michael Hastings, 2013, a journalist who exposed a U.S. military scandal, had his car suddenly accelerate and explode in the street, despite having told friends he was being followed. Jeffrey Epstein, 2019, one of the central figures in the notorious scandal, was said to have committed suicide in his jail cell, despite surveillance cameras being conveniently malfunctioning at the crucial time. If Hackman truly knew something related to the Epstein list or the powerful people behind the case, his death might not have been a coincidence. When the Epstein list was released, a series of high-profile names in politics and entertainment were brought to light. However, some people noticed that the list seemed to have been edited. Certain important names were missing, despite prior evidence suggesting they had connections to Epstein. The question is whether Hackman discovered something about this editing. A journalist who worked with Hackman on a documentary project about Hollywood scandals revealed that he was digging into some issues. He asked me strange questions about the power structure in Hollywood, about who really controls everything. It felt like he was uncovering something bigger than just a scandal. If Hackman truly had information about the editing of the Epstein list or other secrets, his sudden death could have been a way to prevent the truth from being exposed. After Hackman's death, many in the film and media industry became reluctant to speak about him. Those who had worked with Hackman declined interviews. The tributes posted on social media by Hollywood stars were very generic, with no mention of anything specific about his later years. This only heightened suspicion. Could it be that an invisible fear is hanging over those who might know the truth? If Hackman really knew too much, the question arises whether anyone will continue the investigation he left unfinished, or if everything will fall into permanent silence. One thing is certain: the truth has not been fully revealed, and even though Hackman has passed, the questions surrounding his death will continue to haunt the public. The truth has a way of revealing itself. It always does. Will that day ever come, or will everything be buried forever? This scandal is not just the story of an individual, but of a system. From the moment Jeffrey Epstein was arrested to the release of his client list, a repeating pattern has been observed. Powerful names are suspected, but then everything gradually fades into obscurity. After Epstein's mysterious death in prison, people believed justice would be served, that those involved would be exposed. But instead, crucial documents vanished, witnesses went silent, and the media gradually shifted public attention elsewhere. The biggest cover-ups don't happen in the shadows, they happen right in front of us, disguised as breaking news. Gene Hackman, a Hollywood legend, passed away at the exact time this list was released. Could it be just a coincidence, or part of a bigger game? Hollywood has long been seen as a glamorous land, where blockbuster movies are born and stars become idols to millions. However, behind that shiny exterior, it's also a world full of secrets, hidden deals, and powerful figures pulling the strings from behind the scenes. Gene Hackman was not just an actor, he was also an observer. Throughout his long career, he interacted with many influential figures in the entertainment industry, including some whose names appeared on the Epstein list. Some sources suggest that Hackman had discussions with colleagues about the darker sides of Hollywood, speaking about how certain powerful individuals could manipulate the media, actors' careers, and even justice within the industry. The real script wasn't written for the movies, but to control the narrative. If Hackman truly knew about these shocking issues, could someone have tried to silence him? The issue with the Epstein list is not just a Hollywood story, but also ties into politics, business, and the world of the elite. The names under suspicion include national leaders, world-class entrepreneurs, and high-ranking figures in the entertainment industry. But it seems that very few of them actually face consequences. There is an unspoken rule in politics: real power never reveals itself. Those who control the system always find ways to ensure that the most important secrets never get exposed. It's not what you know, but who controls what you know. If Hackman accidentally or intentionally discovered a truth that could threaten the powerful figures behind the scenes, his sudden death might not be a simple accident. When the Epstein list was released, many expected the media to take strong action to expose the entire truth. However, major media outlets reported the story superficially or focused on less important names. This is not the first time this has happened. Major scandals are often buried this way, with information diluted when too dangerous a story is made public. When a story is too sensitive, many other stories are released to divert attention, controlling the narrative instead of focusing on those behind the scenes. Rather than investigating the masterminds, the media will steer the story in another direction, downplaying the severity of the issue and creating new controversies to make the public forget the main scandal. Is the media truly free, or is it just a tool for controlling information? Press freedom only truly exists if those who own the media allow it. With all these factors in mind, Gene Hackman's death becomes even more mysterious. Did he really know too much, or was he just a victim of a series of strange events? While many questions remain unanswered, one thing is certain. Those in power always find ways to keep secrets. The truth is not always made public. It is often concealed under layers of fog. The silence surrounding the Epstein list, along with the suspicions surrounding Hackman's death, only fuel more troubling theories. How many others know the truth but are too afraid to speak out? Are the witnesses, documents, and evidence truly preserved, or is everything being erased from history once again? So what really happened? What was Hackman preparing to reveal? What documents did he hold that might have threatened someone's interests? Who had the motive to silence him forever? No one knows the answer for sure, but one thing is clear. A part of this story has been erased from history. Although the media has tried to divert attention, the internet remains a place where unanswered questions can persist. Forums and social media discussions continue to raise doubts. Is anyone truly investigating Hackman's death? Was the Epstein list altered before being released? Who controls the documents Hackman left behind? Do we truly want to know the truth, no matter how frightening it may be? The truth can be hidden, but it never truly disappears. If history has taught us anything, it's that every secret will eventually be revealed. If enough people dare to search for it, ask questions, and keep looking. Because the truth only exists when someone is willing to protect it. The only thing stronger than a secret is a mind that refuses to forget. So, we've gone through the information and theories surrounding Gene Hackman and the big names involved in the Epstein scandal. While this story still has many unclear aspects and a lot of unverified factors, it certainly makes us think about the major events that may have been concealed. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any upcoming updates. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. In his final years, Hollywood legend Gene Hackman left behind a shocking and emotional legacy, causing his family and the world to question everything they once knew about him. At the age of 95, Hackman's final message, revealed only after his passing, contains chilling truths and secrets that will send a shiver down your spine. From secret financial dealings to haunting letters he never sent, his last will paints a picture of a man struggling with fame, a turbulent past, and the broken relationships he left behind. What did he hide? And why did he choose to reveal everything only in his final moments? Stay tuned as we uncover the untold story of Gene Hackman's last message and the shocking revelations that will haunt you. Santa Fe, New Mexico, a land bathed in sunlight with arid hills and a vast sky, where the sunset paints the red rocks in shades of gold. In this seemingly peaceful place, a name had withdrawn from the bright lights of Hollywood. Gene Hackman, known to audiences for his cold, sharp, and weighty performances in films like The French Connection, Unforgiven, and The Conversation. Gene Hackman was not just an actor. He was a living symbol of an unforgiving era in cinema, where talent had to shout to secure a place under the spotlight. However, while most of his colleagues clung to the spotlight with final roles or surprise comebacks, Gene Hackman chose the opposite path. He disappeared in 2004 after announcing his retirement from the film industry. Hackman rarely made public appearances, did not participate in interviews, attended no events, and there was no career retrospective. All that people knew was that he and his second wife, Betsy Arakawa, had retreated to a villa deep in the outskirts of Santa Fe, where he referred to it as the land of wind and silence. The villa quickly earned a haunting nickname from the locals, the Silent Villa, not only because of its strange isolation, but also due to the dense atmosphere surrounding it. Delivery workers rarely saw the owner, occasionally receiving short messages asking them to leave packages at the gate. Even neighbors just a few hundred meters away seldom saw Gene Hackman step outside. He had once been the face of American cinema, but now he was just a ghost behind those walls. A local resident once said, "The rumors started from that silence." Some people speculated that Gene Hackman was writing an unpublished memoir, while others believed he was recording his thoughts, his final messages, as a way to communicate with future generations. And some believed that it was Betsy Arakawa, the woman who had stood by Hackman through many storms, who asked him to sever all ties with Hollywood as an unspoken agreement between them. The truth remains unknown, as the silent mansion never opened its doors to the curious. The only information to leak out was a small detail from a plumber hired in 2023. He claimed to have seen an old tape recorder on Gene Hackman's desk with a handwritten note that read, "The final words, private." No one knows what the recording contains, or whether it truly exists, or is just an exaggerated imagination. But what happened next only deepened the eerie mystery surrounding Gene Hackman. He canceled all routine health checkups, refused to respond to messages from old colleagues. A journalist who sent a letter inquiring about his well-being received only a blank sheet of paper with 3 words: "Leave me alone." If you found the story of Gene Hackman surprising and emotional, don't forget to like and share this video with your loved ones. To not miss out on more captivating stories and shocking revelations in the future, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell now. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, share your reflections on the legacy Gene Hackman left behind and the untold secrets. Gene Hackman once said in his final interview in 2004, "I've played enough roles of regretful men. I don't want to become one of them." But now, in the sunlit villa of Santa Fe, he has become the shadow of the characters he once portrayed. Lonely, introspective, and carrying a secret that no one is allowed to touch. Betsy Arakawa, who had been by Gene's side for over 30 years, also maintained absolute silence. She declined all interview requests and never appeared with her husband during the rare times he ventured outside. It is said that Betsy was the only one who knew about the final message, the recording that is believed to be Gene Hackman's last will, where he revealed his thoughts on his career, love, and the hidden shadows within. At the age of 90, Hackman no longer cared about fame or wealth. The only thing he sought was peace, a luxury he had never experienced throughout his life on the movie sets. However, that silence was not entirely by choice. Rumors began to spread, and hidden aspects of Hackman's life slowly emerged through whispered conversations from those closest to him. It was rumored that his health had rapidly deteriorated, more quickly than anyone had imagined. Sudden heart attacks, falls that no one witnessed while he was riding his bike down the street. Gene Hackman in his final years had become a shadow of the man he once was. According to sources that have not been made public, Hackman's family was not as perfect as many might have imagined. Hackman had 3 children from his first marriage to Faye Maltese, a marriage that lasted 30 years before ending in a bitter divorce. His daughter, Elizabeth Hackman, publicly criticized her father's emotional neglect. Fame took away all the time he should have spent with the family. He was always working, always somewhere else. While Hackman financially supported his children, the relationship between him and them was never truly nurturing. Moments like family dinners, teaching them to ride bikes, or reading bedtime stories only existed in his children's imagination. This lack of attention built up over time, creating a gap that could never be healed. Even when Gene Hackman remarried Betsy Arakawa, a pianist 30 years younger than him, the tension between him and his children remained unchanged. Many sources close to the family revealed that Hackman's decision to retreat into solitude was not simply for rest, but also a way to avoid the growing conflicts within his own family. Family gatherings became less frequent, phone calls grew shorter, and even holidays like Christmas no longer brought the sense of togetherness they once had. Hackman never openly admitted this, but those close to him sensed that he was haunted by the fear of seeing disappointment in his children's eyes. In an attempt to bridge the emotional gap, he sent money, property, and luxurious gifts from the West Coast to the cities where his children lived. However, like many of the roles he played, money couldn't buy what mattered most: genuine connection, and forgiveness. The distance between them became unbridgeable when Hackman completely stepped away from Hollywood in 2004 after his final role in Welcome to Mooseport. There were no emotional farewells with colleagues, no farewell parties from the studios that once regarded him as their golden goose. Hackman quietly vanished, like a fleeting breeze, leaving only rumors of a lonely, reclusive life. Hackman's final years in Santa Fe seemed like a retreat from the world, a quiet space where he lived in isolation. He spent most of his time in his modest wooden house, immersed in books, writing, and sketching the landscapes around him. Those lucky enough to encounter him at the local grocery store or gas station described him as a thin figure with sharp eyes and a strong gaze, unmistakable. Hackman was often seen sitting alone on his porch, watching the sunset and drawing the distant mountains. These rare moments, far from the spotlight, were perhaps the only times he truly felt free. No cameras, no empty praise, no complicated family relationships, just him, the wind, and the quiet thoughts he kept to himself. Even more chilling are the whispers surrounding a mysterious personal fund that Hackman established in the mid-90s. Details about the fund are shrouded in secrecy. No one knows exactly how it operates, where the money came from, or its true purpose. Among the documents discovered, there was a handwritten letter from Hackman to himself, resembling a personal financial diary. In it, he wrote, "I built this, not to leave an inheritance, but to leave control." This cold statement stunned his children, as it confirmed a harsh truth. Gene Hackman never intended for his assets to fall into anyone else's hands, not even his own family. As rumors about Hackman's declining health spread, Hollywood media began searching for the final clues about his life and legacy. Some believe that Hackman quietly wrote a will years ago, dividing his assets into different accounts to prevent any disputes. Others speculate that he set up an anonymous charitable fund, funneling a large portion of his wealth into it as a silent act of atonement for the family he had distanced himself from. The more he withdrew from the spotlight, the more Hackman became the subject of wild conspiracy theories and fabricated stories. However, in his humble home in Santa Fe, he spent his final days in peace, leaving behind not only an outstanding career, but also unresolved mysteries that would linger long after his death. Gene Hackman wrote his own ending, leaving the world in a way no one expected. The news of his passing was announced on a cold, overcast morning, before the sun had risen over the red peaks of New Mexico. The announcement was simple, without the fanfare one might expect, much like the reclusive life he had lived for the past 2 decades. However, when that brief notice appeared in a local newspaper, it shook not only Hollywood media, but also Hackman's own family, as long-hidden secrets and locked doors that had remained shut for years suddenly swung open after a long silence. Initially, Hackman's family thought everything would be straightforward. They found a handwritten will, notarized in 2001, listing a few clear assets: the house in Santa Fe, a bank account in California, and a classic Hudson Hornet that Hackman had kept since his youth. The total value was estimated to be under $5 million, a modest sum compared to his legendary career and public image. But as they continued searching through old documents and began uncovering seemingly anonymous bank accounts, a completely different and unexpected picture started to emerge. It turns out, Gene Hackman's influence wasn't limited to the world of Hollywood. In the 1990s, when his career was at its peak, Hackman quietly built a complex financial empire, including real estate holdings, stocks, anonymous investment funds, and overseas transfers. Hackman wasn't just a famous actor. He was also a sharp financial strategist, skillfully hiding his wealth within a complex financial network. Hackman's total net worth, when all the clues were put together, was estimated to exceed $80 million, a figure that left even his closest friends stunned. But what truly shocked his family wasn't the scale of his fortune, but the way Hackman had meticulously hidden everything over the years in such a complex and elusive manner. No one knew exactly how, with whom, or why he chose to maintain such secrecy. In some secretive transactions, Hackman even used aliases through trust accounts set up in places like Switzerland, the Cayman Islands, and Singapore. The discovery of this secret fund immediately led to a series of covert investigations. Lawyers, financial experts, and even private detectives were hired to trace the fund, but all hit dead ends. Gene Hackman had been preparing for this day for a long time. Ghost accounts, a maze of shell companies, untraceable money transactions. Every time the family seemed to get close to a clue, Hackman appeared to be several steps ahead. When the family's lawyer officially disclosed Hackman's assets, the listed properties were just the surface: the house in Santa Fe, the vintage car, and a few bank accounts. The rest, the real assets, remained hidden in the shadows of financial secrecy, known only to Hackman. And now, with his passing, that secret has become an unsolvable puzzle for those closest to him. Gene Hackman was not only a famous actor or a Hollywood legend. He was also a man living in deep solitude, torn between the desire to protect his family from the chaos of fame and the fear of losing himself in the role of a father. But it wasn't just the letters that sparked suspicion. The deeper the Hackman family dug into old files and forgotten drawers, the more disturbing pieces they uncovered. Mysterious financial agreements, untraceable money transfers, and perhaps most concerning of all, a list of beneficiaries that did not include any of his family members. It seemed that Hackman had created an entirely separate will, a plan that did not involve any of his children. Ironically, throughout their years together, Hackman and Betsy Arakawa were the epitome of a peaceful marriage. The couple lived in a handcrafted wooden house on a 12-acre plot in the Santa Fe Mountains, far removed from the turmoil and scandals of Hollywood. Their longtime friends, Daniel and Barbara Lenahan, fondly recall the quiet afternoons when Hackman painted. Betsy silently brewed tea, and the two shared content smiles amidst nature, believing they had achieved their ideal life. However, beneath that tranquil exterior, Hackman's need for control never wavered. Betsy once confided to a close friend, "Gene is the perfect husband, as long as I don't touch what he calls his personal legacy." And that legacy was not just his film career, it was also his absolute control over his own story. No one, not even Betsy or their children, was allowed to rewrite the history of Gene Hackman. To the world, Gene Hackman was a film legend, but to his children, he was like a closed door, a father defined only by his work schedule and movie contracts. They don't remember him from fishing trips or cozy family dinners. Instead, they remember him through magazine interviews and the rare moments they saw him on the red carpet, close in proximity but emotionally distant. There were nights when his eldest son, Christopher Hackman, stayed up late, watching and rewatching his father's films, trying to find a real connection behind the characters. But the screen only reflected what Gene Hackman wanted the world to see, not the emotions hidden deep within. In 2017, when Gene's health began to decline, Leslie noticed a noticeable shift in the balance of power. Betsy had become the only one speaking for Gene, making decisions on his behalf, even refusing interviews or acting opportunities without consulting him first. Leslie recalled one summer evening in 2019 when she visited unannounced. Betsy took quite a while to open the door, and her hesitation made Leslie feel uneasy. When Leslie insisted, Betsy reluctantly let her in. Gene was sitting in the living room, but his eyes were cloudy and distant, his smile strained, and every sentence he spoke began with an invisible subservience. Betsy thinks that... Betsy told me. Betsy said I should do this. The man who was once as strong as Gene Hackman was now just a shadow of himself. Betsy insisted that every decision about his health, even the way he passed, was entirely Gene's choice. But Leslie couldn't accept that. She had seen the prescriptions that Betsy had arranged for her father. The handwritten notes in the bedroom where she had carefully outlined steps to help Gene pass peacefully. That realization sent a chill down Leslie's spine. She couldn't shake the haunting question. Did Gene Hackman truly want to die, or were all those decisions made by Betsy on his behalf? After listening to the highly confidential recording, Leslie was shaken, not because of the loss, but because of the fear that the voice she heard wasn't Gene's, but a distorted reflection of Betsy's influence, a confession that had been coerced. Leslie didn't hate Betsy. She couldn't hate the woman who had stood by her father for 30 years. But no amount of gratitude could dispel the growing suspicion that Gene Hackman, once a symbol of strength, might have lived his final years as a pawn, pulled by the strings of a love that had controlled him. And when the door to the Santa Fe mansion closed for the last time, Leslie understood the truth. The one who held the key had been trapped in that house, along with secrets that would never be revealed. Some houses never deteriorate, even after the people who once lived in them are gone. The Santa Fe mansion is one of those places. It wasn't just Gene Hackman's final home. It became something more. A living, breathing entity in the wind that blows through windows, never fully closed. The people of Santa Fe call it the Whispering House. Stories circulate among the neighbors, the old maintenance workers, and those who have seen Gene Hackman standing by the window, silently gazing out at the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. The whispers never cease. It is believed that the presence of Gene and Betsy still haunts the place, not in the form of a visible ghost, but as a trapped memory, endlessly repeating like an old film. Footsteps echo at midnight on the wooden floors, doors gently open and close, even though the mansion has been locked tight for years. And when the doors of the Santa Fe mansion closed for the final time, Leslie knew the answer to Gene Hackman's fate. Whoever truly held the key would forever be locked in that house, along with the buried secrets. Some houses never truly fall into ruin, even when their inhabitants have long since gone. The Santa Fe mansion is one such house. It was not just Gene Hackman's final retirement home. It became a living entity, breathing with each step, silent with every breeze that passed through windows that were never completely closed. The people of Santa Fe call it the Whispering House. Stories circulate among neighbors, former maintenance staff, and even those who briefly spotted Gene Hackman standing by the window, gazing into the distance at the Chisto Mountains. The whispers never stop. People believe the essence of Gene and Betsy never truly left the house, not as physical ghosts, but as a stream of memories eternally trapped, replaying like a faded, worn-out film. Fragments of conversations, footsteps echoing at midnight on the wooden floor, the sound of doors softly opening and closing, even though the mansion had been locked tight. They loved each other, a love so strong it could burn both souls. But they also feared each other, feared losing each other, feared a day when there would be no one left to hold on to in the darkness of old age. That fear turned the house into a living tomb, burying every smile, every unfinished dream. Leslie Hackman, the sole heir of Gene, neither sold the house nor moved in, but she returned once every year on the anniversary of her father's death, standing before the heavy wooden door, her hand trembling on the doorknob but too afraid to turn it. "I hear him," Leslie once said in a rare interview. "Not in a clear voice, just a feeling, a presence, a sadness hanging in the air. There are things he never said, questions he never asked, and now they're all trapped in that house." Did Gene Hackman truly leave behind a final recording? That question haunts reporters, fans, and documentary filmmakers, all of whom try to reach Leslie, but no one has heard the recording except for her. Not a single second of sound, not a single copy has been revealed. Some believe the tape holds dark truths about love, control, and secret agreements between Gene and Betsy in their final days. Others think the recording isn't Gene's farewell to the world, but rather his farewell to himself, a message written and read by him, closing the chapter on his life. Leslie hasn't confirmed anything. She only says, "Some secrets are better left buried with the dead." The house still stands there, lonely on the hillside, with no one daring to buy it. Documentary film crews have requested to shoot there, but they encountered strange glitches when entering the backyard. Distorted images, missing audio, or recordings of inexplicable sounds like the scraping of a wooden chair, the sighs of someone in an empty room. The Santa Fe mansion isn't just a property, it is a living tomb where secrets are locked within every plank of wood, every brick, every window pane. Anyone who steps inside feels the invisible eyes watching, the questions hanging in the air. Questions that only Gene Hackman, Betsy Arakawa, and Leslie Hackman may ever know the answers to. As for the outside world, we can only hear the whispers of the house, the echoes of love, fear, and truths that were never revealed. And when the door of the Santa Fe mansion closes at sunset, it doesn't just close another day. It closes a mysterious chapter with no end. Hackman always kept his personal life private, especially when it came to his children during interviews. In 1989, he shared with film critic John C. Tibbets that audiences appreciated him because they saw him as an ordinary man. He explained that he preferred to keep his personal life simple so that viewers could easily connect with him through his art. He also admitted that he didn't cope well with the transition from a lackluster career to one of success. While he always took care of his family and made sure they had everything they needed, he acknowledged that he had become too enamored with the old Hollywood and its mystique. Even though he didn't indulge in what Hollywood had to offer, he still found himself fascinated by being a part of it and the ability to be anyone and do anything he wanted. Hackman made rare comments about his children in an interview with the Irish Independent in August 2000. He shared that his children had helped him decide to continue his acting career rather than pursue a job behind the camera. Although he had the opportunity to direct Silence of the Lambs, he ultimately turned it down, a decision he had no regrets about. Hackman said, "I didn't think twice about that decision," and mentioned that his children helped him realize it wasn't the best choice. He also admitted that being the child of a famous person was difficult, and that his success had always been a burden on his children. Despite the complex relationship with his father, Hackman's children always loved him and were shocked to hear of his tragic death. Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, were found dead in their home in Santa Fe, New Mexico, on February 26, 2025, leaving the world stunned and full of questions. 9 days after the legendary actor and his wife, along with their dog, were found dead in their 9,000-square-foot home, the circumstances surrounding their deaths remain unclear, with many questions about what truly happened in their secluded home. The sudden and mysterious death of Gene Hackman sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry. As one of the greatest actors of his era, Hackman was renowned for his iconic roles in films such as Unforgiven and The French Connection. Colleagues and directors expressed deep sorrow, with Clint Eastwood describing him as a close friend he would deeply miss, while Francis Ford Coppola called Hackman a true legend of cinema. Betsy Arakawa, though not prominent in Hollywood, was highly respected, especially by those who knew her. She was the devoted partner of Gene Hackman for many decades, and their relationship stood as a rare example of enduring love in the entertainment industry. After their deaths, fans and conspiracy theorists flooded social media platforms, with many speculating that there were still untold details in the story. The lack of timely medical intervention and the unusual circumstances led many to propose theories. While authorities have stated there are no signs of foul play, they continue to investigate, with toxicology results and forensic analysis still pending. As the world mourns the loss of a cinematic legend and his beloved wife, the mystery surrounding their final days remains unsolved. Whether it is a tragic coincidence or something more complex, their story will be remembered as one of the most tragic and dramatic endings in Hollywood. Investigators are still struggling to determine the cause of death, but what the FBI is preparing to uncover is sure to surprise many. Officials initially focused on determining the cause of death for Hackman and Arakawa, but no clear conclusions have been reached. While there are no signs of trauma, carbon monoxide poisoning, or foul play, investigators seem to be broadening their search to uncover the truth. Currently, they have begun to suspect that the house might be hiding important secrets. As information about the FBI investigation spreads, many theories are starting to emerge. Some believe that Hackman, known for his reclusive lifestyle in his later years, may have been concealing a major secret within his home. Officials initially focused on determining the cause of death for Hackman and Arakawa, but no clear conclusions have been reached. While there are no signs of trauma, carbon monoxide poisoning, or foul play, investigators seem to be broadening their search to uncover the truth. Currently, they have begun to suspect that the house might be hiding important secrets. As information about the FBI investigation spreads, many theories are starting to emerge. Some believe that Hackman, known for his reclusive lifestyle in his later years, may have been concealing a major secret within his home. And that's all. The mystery surrounding Gene Hackman's final message continues to baffle those who knew him, and the truth about his final moments may be even more terrifying than we thought. With never-before-seen footage revealing strange clues and the investigation into his death still ongoing, it's clear that the life of this legend holds secrets yet to be uncovered. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on this case. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next shocking story. In the case surrounding the death of the legendary Gene Hackman, a key piece of evidence opened up unexpected twists: his final call. What initially seemed like a moment of panic, this brief message contained crucial details that helped investigators uncover the truth behind Gene Hackman's tragic death. Join us as we delve into this investigation, exploring how a short call helped unravel the mystery and point to the real cause of this legend's departure. If you're curious to follow the untold details of the case, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our videos. Share your thoughts in the comments and join us on this journey to uncover the truth. Chapter 1. The Key of Silence. When silence becomes deafening. Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa's home had never been a place of loud noise. In his final years, Hackman lived in seclusion in the peace of Santa Fe, where sunlight filtered through old window panes, and every corner of the house was imbued with the scent of aged wood, the smell of time, gently covering every memory with a layer of green moss. However, the silence that enveloped the house since that fateful day was no longer the peaceful harmony it once was, but a heavy quiet filled with fear, a suffocating stillness, as though it was blocking every breeze that might reveal an event too indescribable to express. On that day, the first to break the wall of silence wasn't Gene Hackman, nor Betsy Arakawa, nor a neighbor or acquaintance. It was a plumber, a stranger who came to carry out a simple task. He was the first to notice something unusual. He wasn't a cop, certainly not a fortune teller, but the chill that ran down his spine when his hand touched the slightly open front door would haunt him for the rest of his life. The heavy walnut door, always kept firmly closed, was an unbreakable rule for Hackman, a man who believed in control and doors that were always locked. Yet, on that day, it was ajar, as if someone had hurriedly left or abandoned an unfinished journey. There were no signs of forced entry, no strange marks on the floor, no broken glass, but the eerie silence in the house made the worker stop, pull out his phone, and dial 911. The first call didn't come from Gene, nor from Betsy, but from a stranger. His voice trembled as he spoke to the dispatcher, unclear whether it was from fear or some invisible sensation that had crawled up his spine. The smell of damp wood filled the air, mingling with the scent of cold, unfinished food, a sign of meals left incomplete. Shaky hands had placed the food on the table, but never lifted them again. On the porch, the water bowls for the 3 dogs, Bear, Nikita, and Xena, were still full, but their familiar shapes were nowhere to be found. Gene Hackman was known for his extreme caution. He never left a door open, not even a small crack. The door, slightly ajar that day, felt like a silent message, a small sign left by someone to remind outsiders that behind that door, everything had spiraled out of control. All the outdoor security cameras were functioning normally, but strangely, The video footage from 36 hours before the 911 call was made was completely empty. There were no images, no sounds, no data. Like everything that happened on that fateful night had been erased by an invisible hand. The maintenance worker didn't dare step inside. He stood at the threshold, looking down the dark hallway that stretched into the heart of the house, where the faint light from the back window revealed small dog footprints on the tile floor. These footprints scattered, as if Bear, Nikita, and Xena had frantically run around the house, chasing something or someone indefinable. Time in the house seemed to stand still, but an overwhelming sense of urgent desperation hung in the air, like a breathless note in the sorrowful symphony of fate. As the worker turned away, he felt himself trembling, not from the late winter chill, but from the strong intuition that he had just inadvertently opened the final door to the secret Gene Hackman had kept hidden in the last days of his life. The slightly ajar door didn't just open to the house, it opened to the silent hell in the life of a legend. Chapter 2. The Window to Terror. The fearful whisper of the worker echoed. Santa Fe, a quiet afternoon with the sun casting long streaks of light down the gravel road leading to Gene Hackman's house. No one could have imagined that this absolute calm concealed a nightmare churning deep behind the silent wooden door. The plumber, thinking he was merely stopping to fix a small issue, had unknowingly become the first witness to a tragedy even the boldest scripts wouldn't dare write. Gripping the cold wrench, the middle-aged man circled the house, searching for signs of life. After a moment's hesitation at the threshold, he couldn't bring himself to enter. Something was terribly wrong. Too quiet, too unsettling, as if something was clinging to every corner, every crevice. The instincts of an ordinary worker weren't enough to identify the feeling he was experiencing, but the rapid breaths and the pounding of his heart echoed in his ears, speaking volumes. He moved toward the back of the house, past the large window leading into the living room where Gene Hackman often sat, lost in a book under the warm light. What he saw took his breath away. Betsy Arakawa, the small woman with the gentle smile, lay there, motionless, her eyes wide open but no longer recognizing the world around her, like a tragic wax figure in the coziest room of Santa Fe. "Damn it! Damn it! Oh, damn it!" The man's voice shattered with each breath. He stepped back, his hands trembling as he searched for his phone in the pocket of his coat. His fingers were icy, not from the wind, but from the primal fear that had struck his nerves. Fear only those who have touched the door of death could understand. The 911 call echoed in the vast emptiness of the American West. Words chopped, stammered, chaotic. A stream of disordered language as the human mind was pushed to its breaking point. The dispatcher on the other end had heard countless emergency calls, but the way that voice slipped between fear and utter despair sent a chill down her spine. I saw someone in Hackman's house. Oh, damn it. She was just lying there. Oh, damn it. The fragmented pieces of the story tangled together, overlapping with heavy breaths and the sound of footsteps retreating from the window, as if the person feared that by standing too close, a cold hand would reach out from within and drag him into hell along with Gene and Betsy. When the Santa Fe police received the report, they never imagined that one of the most horrifying cases in local history would be ignited from the very house of Hollywood legend, Gene Hackman. This town was too small to hold such tragedies. The locals were used to land disputes, stolen trucks, or a few drunken brawls. No one was prepared for the scene the investigators would find when they stepped through the slightly ajar wooden door. Betsy lay on the carpet, her arm limp, her eyes wide open, but without any sign of extreme fear on her face. That only made everything more confusing. She hadn't struggled, hadn't resisted. There were no signs of a fight. She simply lay there, as if she had surrendered to something. Something she had known, something she had predicted, something that had made the strong woman not even attempt to run. Outside the window, the maintenance worker stood motionless, his eyes fixed on the body through the glass. It felt as though Betsy was still watching him, through the cold pain, across the boundary between life and death. By the time the police arrived, the house had been sealed off. But the real mystery, the most horrifying part, wasn't in the living room where Betsy lay. It was what awaited behind the closed door at the end of the hallway. Gene Hackman's office, where his final call had been made, where the real story was just beginning. Chapter 3, The Final Call. What did Gene Hackman say? The old phone was found right beside Gene Hackman's body, lying askew in the corner of the cold mudroom, as if it too had witnessed the final moments of the man who once stood at the pinnacle of Hollywood. A thin layer of dust on the screen was wiped away by someone's finger, revealing hasty usage, unsent messages, missed calls, and amidst the chaos, one call had been made. Gene Hackman's final call. A leaked source from an anonymous investigator revealed that Gene Hackman made a call before collapsing. Not a random call, not a lengthy conversation. It was very brief, just a few seconds. But every word spoken from the phone Gene gripped in his hand became an obsession, even for the most seasoned investigators. I can't breathe. Something's wrong with Betsy. A simple sentence, but heavy with meaning. According to sources, Gene's voice had grown hoarse, his breaths uneven, as if each word had to fight against the pain tightening around his chest. The investigator listened to the recording extracted from the switchboard over and over, analyzing each breath, every long pause between his words. In Gene's voice, there was an underlying fear, a feeling only those who have witnessed war, those who have survived near-death experiences, truly understand. Gene Hackman, who had tirelessly worked on film sets, standing alongside great names and playing powerful roles, unafraid of both heaven and hell, found his voice trembling like a child in his final moments. Was it because he felt that this time everything was different? Why did Gene mention Betsy in that call? Investigators believe this is the most crucial clue. He didn't call to report danger to himself, but to mention Betsy, the woman who had been by his side for decades. This shows that in his final moments, Gene wasn't thinking about himself. He was worried about Betsy. He sensed that something was wrong with her, even before the crisis unfolded with him. A strange detail was revealed from the sound analysis. Interspersed between Gene's fragmented words was the sound of a dog barking in the distance, possibly from the bathroom where Betsy was found. This reinforced the theory that Gene had sensed something was wrong with his wife, perhaps a sign of a health crisis or some unusual event unfolding right before him. And then, as he tried to call for help, he too fell into a state of danger. Investigators were seriously considering whether the call had been interrupted by a medical factor, such as a sudden heart attack or an acute symptom, or if there had been some external interference. But from any angle, this final call wasn't just a cry for help from a husband worried about his wife. It could also be a final testament, the last key to unlocking the truth about what really happened in that cold $3.8 million mansion. Another source from the telecommunications center revealed a chilling detail. Before the line cut off, there was a long, drawn-out breath, unclear whether it was Gene or someone else in the house. It wasn't the breath of someone trying to catch their breath, but rather like the exhale of someone taking their final breath, an unmistakable sound, one that haunted every investigator who heard it. What terrified everyone wasn't just what Gene said, but what he never had the chance to say. Something had happened between Gene and Betsy, something only they could understand. And when the final call was made, it wasn't just the fading voice of a legend. It was the sound of a buried secret, a secret that might never be revealed. Outside the house where the two bodies were found, the light of Santa Fe stretched on as usual. But for those who knew about Gene Hackman's last call, that light was just a thin veil concealing the storm of truth that was about to sweep everything away. If you find the story of Gene Hackman's death interesting and captivating, leave a comment with the number 1. If not, leave a comment with the number 0. Now, let's dive into the next developments of the story. Chapter 4. Pills, Prescriptions, and Unanswered Questions. The white, yellow, and blue pills were scattered across the table, spilling onto the floor like pieces of a puzzling riddle. Among them, a single open bottle lay on its side, the label still clearly visible with the doctor's name, the patient's name, and small dosage warnings. The investigators sat there for a long time, their eyes scanning every word, every mark left on the surface of the bottle, desperately trying to find any clue that could answer the most haunting question: what really happened to Gene and Betsy Hackman? There were no signs of a struggle, no evidence of forced entry, no screams or crashing sounds heard from neighbors in the 24 hours before the two bodies were discovered. And most importantly, there were no external wounds on either of the couple. Investigators had to return to the scattered pills on the table. They weren't just physical evidence, but fragments of the mental turmoil of an elderly couple who had spent nearly 30 years together, witnessing glory, storms, and undercurrents that no one else had ever known. Gene Hackman, who had stood at the pinnacle of the film industry, appeared before millions with a tough exterior, had actually lived with a weak heart for many years. His heart condition wasn't a secret to those closest to him. Treatments, prescriptions, regular checkups, and mornings when he sat quietly on the porch, gently stroking his wedding ring as if searching for the final piece, all of it was documented in the medical records collected by the police. However, there was one thing not mentioned in any records: Betsy's psychological instability. The woman who always smiled in photos with her husband had actually fallen into unanticipated bouts of depression. Close friends recalled that Betsy would often sit for hours by the window, her gaze fixed outside, occasionally bursting into tears for reasons unknown. After Gene announced his retirement, the spotlight faded, and their large home in Santa Fe became a sealed box where two aging souls were trapped in long, suffocating days. The investigators carefully examined each pill. Some antidepressants listed in Betsy's medical records, some heart medications for Gene. But among them there were strange pills, unlabeled and of uncertain origin. Who brought them into the house? Who opened that final bottle? At the first meeting of the investigation team, the hypothesis of a drug overdose was brought to the table, but something didn't add up. Older, reclusive couples with limited social interaction rarely fall into the tragedy of overdosing like young Hollywood stars. A sophisticated poisoning? A medication mix-up due to memory loss? Or could it have been Gene, in a moment of desperation, who opened that bottle himself? The biggest question still hung in the air of the Santa Fe police meeting room. Gene and Betsy. Who took the first pill? And as that pill slid down their throats, what did it carry with it? A plan carefully laid out in advance, or simply a fateful mistake? As the forensic team carefully gathered the remaining pills, the late sunlight streamed through the window, casting light onto the corner of the table where an open bottle of medication lay still, like a mute witness. In that dim light, it almost seemed as though two faint shadows lingered. Gene Hackman and Betsy, hand in hand, silently watching the investigation unfold, unraveling the mysteries surrounding their final moments. Chapter 5. The Unlocked Door. Who left? Who stayed? The dark wooden door, covered in the dust of time, opened to a narrow, suffocating gap. The faint light of the late afternoon filtered through the crack, casting a hazy streak on the cold tile floor. That was how the first investigators saw the home of Gene and Betsy Hackman on that fateful afternoon. No doors were locked, no chains, no barriers separating the outside world from the two lifeless bodies inside. For anyone who had ever known Gene Hackman, this was completely out of character. At any age, Gene had always been obsessed with security. During his years under the Hollywood spotlight, he received countless threatening letters from obsessive fans and had to face photographers willing to do anything to invade the private lives of famous stars. Even after stepping away from the limelight and moving to Santa Fe, Gene continued the nightly ritual of checking the doors. His friends used to joke that he locked the doors so carefully that even Betsy, if she spent too long picking flowers in the garden, would have to knock several times to get back into the house. Yet, on that day, the front door was unlocked. The door leading to the backyard was only slightly ajar, revealing a patch of withered grass blown by the wind. There were no signs of a break-in, no strange mud stains, no suspicious footprints. Everything was eerily silent. The only thing left were the doors open, almost as if someone had hurriedly left or intentionally left behind a wordless message. Betsy Hackman, according to neighbors, had a fear of strangers. She rarely opened the door to anyone who hadn't called ahead. Even delivery workers were only allowed to leave packages outside the gate. Because of this, when news of the unlocked doors leaked, local media immediately raised suspicions. Was there a third party present in the house that day? Someone familiar enough that Gene and Betsy didn't feel the need to be cautious, yet also someone who witnessed or became involved in the final tragedy? There were no signs of a struggle, no belongings disturbed, and every corner of the house remained as tidy as if the couple had just finished lunch and suddenly vanished from this world. This quickly dismissed the hypothesis of a break-in or attack. But what could be more terrifying than violence? It was the silent presence of someone who knew the house well, who understood Gene and Betsy, who knew every little habit of theirs. A person who didn't need to break the door, didn't need to search for anything because their very presence was the answer. The investigation team reviewed the security camera system in the area. Santa Fe wasn't equipped with many surveillance cameras, but in a quiet neighborhood, most of the surrounding households had basic recording devices installed. The data from the 24 hours prior to the discovery of the body was collected and analyzed, with each frame slowed down. The result: no suspicious individuals were recorded entering or leaving Gene and Betsy's home, no strangers, no unusual vehicles, no strange sounds. This led to an even more chilling hypothesis. Was someone inside the house, staying for an extended period before leaving without leaving a trace? Or was there a hand that intervened, erasing all evidence and causing the camera system to go blind at the most critical moment? Amid the storm of speculation, one persistent question crept into the mind of every investigator. If Gene and Betsy weren't the last to lock the door, then who opened it? And why? Why, in a house that had been securely locked for years, was the door left ajar that day, as if waiting for someone to return? As the last light of day faded on the threshold, it felt as though the door didn't just open to the outside world, but to a dark secret, where truth and lies, life and death, merged into a maze from which there was no escape. Chapter 6. Echoes from Mudro, the haunting in the final recording. The small, cramped room, barely large enough for an old wooden shelf, on which sat a few pairs of sneakers and worn rubber boots, still stained with dried mud from the backyard. This was Mudro, a space Gene Hackman had rarely spent time in during his life, yet it became the place where he collapsed. His body contorted into an odd position, his thin hand still gripping the phone, a silent witness holding the unsaid words of his final moments. Why was Gene there? What could have driven a 94-year-old man, once a star who walked the prestigious red carpets, to fall in such a confined space, used only for storing shoes and umbrellas? The crime scene investigators spent hours examining every tiny detail. There were no signs of a struggle, no blood, no evidence of a life-or-death battle. Only a chilling silence, as if Gene had stepped into Mudro carrying an invisible fear, only to collapse right at the threshold. The first hypothesis suggested that Gene tried to run out the front door to seek help, but at that moment, the door was ajar, not locked. This completely contradicted Gene's survival instinct, as he was always obsessed with locking the doors at night. If Gene truly wanted to seek help from outside, why didn't he run to the garden, just a few steps from the main road? Why did he stop in Mudro, the only room without windows and no way to see outside? The second hypothesis was even more chilling. Gene hadn't gone outside to escape. He was running from something within his own home, from something he had either heard or witnessed just before collapsing. The forensic team had searched all of Mudro, every pair of shoes, every small trace of mud, but found nothing unusual. However, as they continued to examine the phone in Gene's hand, the door to the true secret began to open. The phone wasn't just a means of communication, it was a silent witness to Gene Hackman's final moments. The phone still had battery, but the lock screen wouldn't open. The investigators used special techniques to back up all the data on the device, searching for recent calls, unsent messages, even audio recording apps or personal logs. Then they discovered a short audio file, a recording that lasted less than 11 seconds, but enough to send chills down the spine of even the toughest. The recording began with heavy, labored, and broken breaths, as if Gene was struggling to swallow the fear rising in his throat. His voice trembled, fragmented, but one sentence rang out clearly amid the chaotic sounds. "Something's wrong with Betsy. I can't breathe." Immediately after those words, there was no loud noise, no objects falling, no screams or struggles, only a silence that lasted for 3 seconds, followed by a small click, the sound of a finger tapping the phone screen. The location data from the phone also revealed something puzzling. Just minutes before the recording was made, Gene's location moved from the living room into Mudro, with no indication he went upstairs or stepped into the garden. The entire house seemed to have trapped him in a closed loop, unable to escape. The investigation team immediately expanded their search to include Betsy's phone, hoping to find signs of contact between the couple in those final moments. However, Betsy's phone had mysteriously shut off the night before. No calls, no messages, no apps open, almost as if someone had deliberately erased every trace from her device. Why did Gene Hackman hold the phone, recording a brief panicked clip before collapsing in Mudro, a place where no one in the house had ever stayed long? What had he heard? What had he seen? Or had his own hand accidentally uncovered a truth that had never been revealed? Outside Mudro, the front door remained slightly ajar. The cold breeze of the late afternoon slipped through the crack, like the breath of an unseen stranger, witnessing the final act of Gene Hackman's life, but never revealing itself. As night descended on Santa Fe, the phone rang in the wooden house, breaking the silence. On the other end, Gene Hackman's voice trembled, no longer the warm, resonant sounds of a legend, but the faint whisper of a man facing his final moment. "Betsy, I'm sorry, I can't." A choked sob, followed by silence. The call ended, but those words hung in the air like a belated confession, like an explanation left unfinished. In the mysterious case surrounding Gene Hackman's death, an unexpected piece of evidence stood out: the final call he made. What initially seemed like a moment of panic and desperation turned out to be a crucial clue, helping to unravel the chilling truth behind his death. In this video, we will dive into the investigation and explore how that brief 11-second call ultimately helped investigators discover the true cause of his death. If you find this case full of surprises and hidden twists, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to stay updated on the next exciting investigations. Subscribe to the channel so you won't miss out on any other intriguing stories. See you